Plaza resolution, called the Public Plaza Resolution. And there is a sign-up sheet available over there. I already have 2 sheets that people have signed up. Before we start the discussion, I wanted to see if there were any staff here who wanted to make a report. Councilmember Samuels indicated that there might be somebody from the police department that will want to speak about this a little bit. Okay, that's just fine with me then. I'll also just let my colleagues know that the author of the resolution, Councilmember Johnson, and also the chair of the committee have asked us to consider holding this over one more cycle so that they can be present when we take any action on it or further action. So I'm inclined to do that. I think having more time for more discussion makes some sense, but I also will certainly respect the wishes of committee members. If there's any motions or suggestions or ideas that come forward, I'm open to that as well. I think what I would like to do is then just start at the beginning of the list here and take comments. I have a little timer up here. I'd like to ask people to please keep their comments down to 2 minutes. I have a 30-second warning here just to let you know when it's time to wrap up, and hopefully that will be helpful because I know it's difficult to speak and also keep track of the same time. First person on the list is Sam Krabrinsky from the Minneapolis Downtown Council. Welcome back to City Hall and to our committee.
Chairman, members of the committee, I wish that I could spend a little more time talking about the long career I had defending personal expression and freedom of personal rights in the arts and cultural fields, because as long as I've been 16 years with the Downtown Council as its president, I was 16 years as president of the Iowa Arts Council and the Minnesota State Arts Board before that. I believe in the definition of democracy as freedom within limitations. The Minneapolis Downtown Council's Board of Directors passed a unanimous resolution of support for the draft overnight camping resolution you will be considering. A strong body of opinion exists to reinforce the need to maintain order and the appearance of order in the central business district at all times. No major city in the United States allows overnight camping in its CBD for any reason, and Minneapolis cannot be the exception for any reason. Overnight camping in public spaces is also dangerous, as can be seen by the circulating report of a rape. Will our parks and plazas be safe this summer? Uncertainty about how the Minneapolis City Council will respond to safety and to protest is taking its toll. Already on the summer events the Downtown Council holds at PV Plaza, some sponsors have already left the June season, presuming that order will not be maintained there. Why try to have summer events if order won't be maintained, they're saying. If we cannot reassure the remaining sponsors that a peaceful summer of events is ahead, there simply won't be any events at all. Perhaps that plays into some sort of a need for people to still protest. They're getting to the public. I would presume it would be better not to hold this over for 2 weeks so that we can get around to canceling all the rest of the events in the summer on PV Plaza, because the sponsors are waiting for an answer. Please support this resolution. It's very important to the business community and, of course, to the public that wants to attend events on PV Plaza in June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The second speaker is Dave Bicking. And typically around here, we introduce yourself with your name and your address before you speak.
Hi.
I forgot to mention that.
Yes, my name is Dave Bicking. I live at 3211 22nd Avenue South in Minneapolis. The resolution being considered today says that, quote, the city desires to protect and enhance public use and enjoyment of the plazas, as well as to protect public health and safety. We are ready today to present clear and convincing evidence that the city of Minneapolis, through its police department, is actively working to make PV Plaza a more dangerous place for the public to gather and use. Police officers have been observed and videotaped dropping off people at the plaza who are clearly under the influence of illegal drugs. Furthermore, we have multiple statements and other corroborating evidence that those people have been given the drugs by the police officers, that they have taken the drugs and gotten high in the presence of those police officers and under the control of those police officers. We have given you a statement outlining the program and our investigation. Please read it before you vote on this resolution. There is also a 35-minute video available showing these actions and presenting interviews with the subjects and with police officers. Briefly, this operation is being conducted as part of a training program for officers to be able to recognize when drivers are impaired by substances other than alcohol. Minnesota conducts such training once or twice a year for officers throughout the state. It so happens that a training was conducted locally in the last few weeks. Normally, volunteers who are already drug impaired are used for training so that officers can see the effects of various drugs in person. But in this case, young people were picked up off the street and given drugs, then returned to PV Plaza while still high. It is too much to believe that the timing of this training, combined with the decision to change the method of finding subjects for training, combined with the decision to focus on PV Plaza, is just a coincidence. Furthermore, some subjects were asked to inform on the Occupy movement while they were taking drugs in police presence. The timing of this resolution was suspicious from the beginning, coming directly after the reoccupation and the arrests. The new evidence confirms that Occupy and political dissent is being targeted. Far from being a genuine effort to increase public safety, this resolution is being justified by a deliberate effort to make the plazas more dangerous, then present a so-called solution to the problem by imposing more rules and more restrictions on constitutionally protected rights. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Pat Haga. And if you could give your name and address for the record, that would be appreciated.
I'm Haga.
Haga. Sorry about that.
My name is Pat Haga. I live at 1028 25th Avenue Southeast. I've lived in Minneapolis ever since I graduated from the university, over 50 years, taught in the public schools. I think Minnesota has a proud reputation for our public schools, for our cooperative efforts, working together. And I have a vision. I would like to see the Occupy movement. They are the only people who are addressing the issues that are crucial to our society. And I would like to see them protected at PV Plaza. I would like to see that as a forum, and that Minneapolis would be unique among the cities in the United States for that purpose. That's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Mary Murphy.
My name is Mary Lynn Murphy, and my address is 609 Montcalm Place in St. Paul. I wrote this down for brevity. I'm a member of Occupy Minneapolis. I grew up in Minneapolis and I reside in St. Paul, but joined Occupy Minneapolis essentially because of the plaza. I believe it was and remains a viable opportunity for community outreach and societal growth. I am 67 years old. I have been a community volunteer activist my entire adult life. I have served on school boards and various other nonprofit boards. My involvement in Occupy has been related to community outreach and coalition building with the general public, with foreclosed homeowners, neighborhood outreach, the immigrant community, workers, environmentalists, peace groups, and churches. Yes, we are a diverse group in every way, including politically. But I would say that Occupy is uniquely positioned at the hub of energy of all of those groups that we embody, we embody representatives from each one of them. Going forward, I would say that these groups share some essential commonalities. Speaking for myself, they are: 1, the quest for a functional, peaceful, citizen-driven, not money-driven democracy in which law enforcement protects, rather than bullies its nonviolent citizen activists. Number 2, we seek an equitable economic system that rewards the 99% at least proportionately to the 1%. And number 3, we seek a sustainable environment. There are other issues as well, but I see these as central. To move forward on these issues, since our government apparently will not, we believe that Occupy Minneapolis must have a safe, visible, public space. It is vital to our movement, and it is our right as citizens of the city, state, and country.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sean On. Perhaps I mispronounced that, but you can correct it for me. State your name and address for the record, please.
Sean Ani, and I live at 9248 Trinity Gardens in Brooklyn Park. First, it's interesting that the only vocal support for this is coming from someone mentioning corporate sponsors. Also, in 2005, the world's energy supply stopped increasing. This problem of homelessness, which is now taking root in the suburbs, is only going to get worse. The only people that kind of do anything about it, Occupy has, in my opinion, made PV a better place to be. I've been there before and after Occupy, and I've enjoyed it much more since. And their message is far more important than someone's clumsiness and tripping in the plaza or not liking chalk. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Gillette West. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming.
Hi, thank you very much for hearing me today. My name is Gillette West. I live at 3710 14th Avenue South in Minneapolis. I'm here on behalf of the Arts Club of Minneapolis, an organization that I am the founder of and director of. It is a private membership organization that is dedicated to pairing artists with art patrons for the purpose of providing ongoing living wage for artists in our community. I'm also the owner of Gillette West Gallery in the Northrop King building. I've been an artist for 35 years, and I'm a retired art history and studio arts professor. My issue with the plaza and with all of the public spaces is one of free speech. I believe that imposing hours and restrictions on the movement of people in those places discriminates on people based on the hours that they're available to use those public spaces. Some people have to work during the day. Maybe the only time they can use that space is in the evening, and they have a right to be there to express themselves, whether or not they just want to enjoy the space or they want to express their free speech in terms of artistic expression, not just for protest. I will say at this time that I am an Occupy protester and that I'm a proud Occupy protester. And I feel that they have a right to protest, but I'd like to separate what I'm saying today from this issue of artistic expression, okay? And the context in which an artwork exists is very important for several reasons. The first of all is because often it defines the relevance and meaning of that artwork, where the artwork is exhibited. Not all art exists in a museum. Not everybody is a rich artist that can be in a museum, okay? Not everyone is a famous artist. We have the emergence of performance art as one of the main artistic drives in the world today. Performers need to be able to have a space in which to express themselves. They are citizens of our country. It's part of their free speech. I have some other issues that are personal ones.
2 minutes is just about up, in fact. So could you wrap it up?
I will. I'll wrap it up.
Sorry about that.
I was homeless as a young person with a small child, and I was still a citizen of this country. I had a right to walk among my fellow citizens in public, and I went from homelessness to holding the highest degree in my field, and I am a contributing member of the citizen today. But I was forced at one time to live under the Lincoln Memorial Highway in Ames, Iowa, with a small child. A symbol of freedom, the Lincoln Highway. Please do not push people off of this plaza. It's the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
The next speaker is Frank Clark.
My name is Frank. I live in Coon Rapids, 426 111 Lane. I, too, was homeless for 9 years as an adult. And I was homeless as a child. And I just want to say that I haven't been homeless in 14 years. And since then, as far as my credibility goes, I've been approved by the Corrections Department to bring 12 step groups in there. So I'm a changed person. I realize that there's stuff goes on in parks. You know, it's going to go on anywhere. The gentleman over here said that there ain't no park, no city in the U.S. that allows sleeping in the park after dark or after. You know what? I've been to San Francisco. I've been to L.A. You can go to MacArthur Park. You can go to the City Center up in San Francisco, and they're all night long. It's kind of scary because the lady was talking about having children and being homeless. As a homeless person, there are shelters. There's not enough. A lot of people don't want to go around them shelters because they don't want to be around what's going on there. Now, there's stuff that goes on in parks, but it's a lot safer for some of the homeless people to go down there because it's kind of a public place. You're going to get what you get in them places. If, you know what? If the police want to find out who's doing what, you know, watch the park. You have us all in one spot, you know. We're not bad people. You're going to see more and more homeless. And I'm talking to you as a formerly homeless person, but I'm also Occupy Homes. Occupy Homes to save my house, and if it wasn't for these parks, and I haven't worked in 9 months right now, you know, and my unemployment's about ready to run out. And if I lose my house, I don't care what anyone says, I'm going to be sleeping in the park. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Next speaker is Janet Nye. Welcome.
Janet Nye, 2112 Portland Avenue South, Minneapolis. To say that I'm shocked about this most recent example of unethical behavior by the police, as mentioned by Dave Bicking, is an understatement. Upon hearing the news, I felt actually sick to my stomach. The first responsibility of anyone involved in law enforcement, from the mayor on down, is to be solidly educated and actively engaged in ethical behavior and decision-making. That anyone involved in the approval process of this program, if there was a process, let the program go into effect without concentrated attention to its moral and ethical implications is not just troubling, but actually frightening. Because of this revelation, I'm now feeling even less safe in this city, especially when I participate in Occupy events. I'm very concerned about the general lack of respect for the law by those who administer the laws. This latest revelation is one that I don't think can be explained away by claiming carelessness or sloppy thinking. It's directly related to undermining the free speech rights of a particular group. That group, Occupy, quite various in age, political persuasion, and ethnic origin, is united strongly in a belief in the Constitution, in justice for all and in a voice for all. I wish I could say the same for many who walk the halls of power. Thank you.
Next is John Griffith.
John Griffith, 1000 Nicollet Mall, Target Corporation. Mr. Commissioner and council members. I just want to start off by saying that I haven't been homeless, but I've been without work. I was raised in a family that on more than one occasion we had to go to a food shelf, and I understand that. Just over the lunch hour, we attended as a corporation a fundraiser to help raise money to help people at St. Stephen's. I work at a company called Target Corporation, in large part because it has a huge heart for people and a huge heart for this community. Last year, we gave over $32 million in charitable contributions to this city, to this state. We employ more than 10,000 people in downtown Minneapolis, more than 26,000 across the state. And our interest lies in helping to ensure that our city remains strong, that it remains clean, that it remains safe and vibrant and inclusive for everyone who lives, works, and protests here. Last year, we brought 400 new employees into Minneapolis, many from the finest universities in our country. Part of what makes Minneapolis such a vibrant city to live and work in are the city's community areas, including the plazas. They are where the city breathes. We believe that all who live and work in Minneapolis and visit Minneapolis should be able to enjoy these spaces. With a limited amount of public and open space in the city, we believe it's important that our city's public spaces remain accessible to all who visit. We support the rights of all individuals to express themselves peacefully and believe that this opportunity will continue under the rules proposed by Barb Johnson. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dave Sweet.
Good afternoon.
You could state your name and address.
David Sweet, 3225 Wellington Lane. I'm the author of The iDome, as featured on CBS News by Pat Kessler. I'm also very familiar with Target Corporation. I've worked on a number of technology projects, 6 of them for the University of Minnesota, the state. And so I'm very familiar with technology. And first of all, I wanted to direct everyone's attention to the reason we're all protesting. And if you looked at TVShowHere.com, we gave the award to CBS News for the DocX Corporation's exposure of literally tens of thousands of documents that were actually fraudulently done. And just for your convenience, I went ahead and made copies for you so you can review that little clip. Now, if you happen to know what market fixing is, that's where you bring a lot of people to a market that shouldn't be there, and it drives the prices up of homes. Now, it is my belief that we have every reason to protest these market fixing activities. I've sat and watched Mr. Griffin at the state capitol repeatedly talk about how great Target is, but in fact, when we encourage gambling, I think we already learned gambling with the banks. We already lost on the bet. We don't need any more gambling, and to promote gambling in 4,000 bars and restaurants is ridiculous. So we should be able to protest those types of motions for our corporations, which will result in many more homeless people. I work with all of the organizers of all the different shelters in this town, and I work on behalf of our servicemen. Our servicemen gave up their lives, and they have a right to protest 24 hours a day. They're going down different roads with bombs. And a lot of these guys are on a lottery on Monday to try to get a homeless place to sleep. So at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure you guys understand that that's why we should be able to protest. And here's your copies for your review.
You can give those to the clerk, and then she can make sure that we all get a copy. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Nick Espinoza. Welcome.
Nick Espinoza. I live at 609 Jefferson Street Northeast. I'm a member of Occupy Homes and also the St. Anthony East Neighborhood Association. And the point I'd like to make today is that the work that we're doing now to save families like Frank's from foreclosure and my own family who's in foreclosure wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have that space at the plaza to come together and talk with other members of the community, figure out what's going wrong in our community and what we can do to make this city safer, make it more accessible, and make housing a human right for people who are struggling to make payments on their mortgage. Right now, the banks are completely unwilling to negotiate with people, and what we're doing, I believe, is in line with the interests and the beliefs of many of our city council members as well, standing up for families who deserve to stay in their homes and not to be thrown out on the streets. Now, this, again, wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the space on the plaza. And what we feel when we see these sort of resolutions is that this is an attack not just on a right to camp or to sleep on a plaza, but it's an attack on a right to assemble. And it's an attack on the values that the Occupy movement holds. And so we urge you not to vote for this resolution. Thank you.
The next speaker is Kevin Lewis.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Lewis, 121 South 8th Street. I'm the executive director of BOMA, which is a Building Owners and Managers Association, Greater Minneapolis. We have over 500 of our members, and we represent 60 million square feet of office space in the Greater Minneapolis area. And many of the 160,000 workers in downtown Minneapolis are tenants of ours within the downtown area. In conversations with our Government Affairs Committee, our Executive Committee, and also our Board of Directors, we did address this issue quite often. It is a city issue. It's a public property that we're discussing. Nonetheless, our tenants, our landlords who are looking to have tenants, to retain tenants, bring in new tenants, see that there is some discouragement because of what some of the vitality that's going on in this regard. They need to have commerce in order to be successful for their buildings. It's not so much that they do not respect free speech. We do. Absolutely. All BOMA members do. With that, we are concerned about some of the security issues, and it's not necessarily security for the individuals that are in this room. There could be potential counter opposition to that, and that could manifest itself into some ugly situations, which nobody wants in this room at all. So for our purposes, representing, again, 160,000 of those that work in downtown Minneapolis, the building owners, the building managers, we very much support the resolution that Barb Johnson has proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Dan Bide. I may be pronouncing and misreading the last name, so you can correct that for me and give us your address.
Yes, my name is Dan Fite, and oops, it's a little low for me. And I live in the Stevens Square neighborhood. I don't want to share my address right now because I've been working around the clock with my team of videographers to document what I believe is an illegal government program going on, or is certainly unethical by any reasonable institutional review board standard. This is a public safety emergency. I would ask the City Council tomorrow, Thursday, between 3 and 11 p.m. if the State Patrol and officers from across the state return again for this DRE program, and they take sober people away and bring back people who are chemically intoxicated to the plaza. That creates a public safety crisis immediately in the downtown space that is something that this committee has to address. I wanted to address the simple fact that we're really faced with divergent philosophies. That essentially the top of our society wants quiet central spaces, as one of the speakers just said. But the thing is that the government is only constituted to defend our inalienable rights, which are recognized in the Constitution. So me as a journalist, I have the right to stand in front of Target and do a story at 2 in the morning. A proselytizer has the right to share his religious beliefs at 2 in the morning on Nicollet Mall or PV Plaza. A protester has the right to protest. And the problem, one of the major problems that's driven this movement forward is that city government level is not effective at dealing with financial crime, and that's a subject that I think we need to talk about more deeply. If we could direct the city attorney's office to do a report about issues like mortgage fraud, fraudulent conveyance of mortgages, how many mortgages were foreclosed upon when the foreclosers did not have legal standing to foreclose those mortgages. Also, I want to point out that the drug war prohibition creates billions of dollars of corruption in the financial system, and the banks, including Wells Fargo, which has been well documented, launder billions of dollars of drug money. And I would question the standpoint of the city council if the city attorney can do a report about whether or not the city believes that Wells Fargo launders drug money, and whether or not the wire transfer system in the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis moves billions of dollars of drug money. Because that is the kind of thing which is driving this issue, and we need to have public spaces to get at these issues because our civilization is in serious decline because we can't get those issues and move forward, and I can't figure out who to talk about financial corruption. Who do we deal with to deal with this?
Time is up. Appreciate your suggestions.
Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned a video or something?
Yeah.
Is that something that will be shared with the public or the council? Or?
Yes, the video will be released available. It will be licensed Creative Commons. It's uploading right now. We should have the URL within an hour for everybody, and we'll be sending it out to the city council and mayor. We ask that you all take a while to look at that, but also just, if the DRE program starts again tomorrow, just come downtown and talk to the people who are being put through this program, who are being turbo, intoxication situations in this space, because it's very unsafe for public safety.
We got that request too, and I'll look forward to the
cool. Thank you.
web address. Thanks. The next speaker is Paul Painter. Sorry, Ben.
So I just wanted to make a few notes about what I think this motion is really about. And I think this motion is really about getting rid of Occupy. I think that's fairly obvious. I think it makes no real intentions about increasing public use of the space. In fact, I think we are simply eliminating the night use of the space. So any justification saying, oh, we want to make this available for more people, I see nothing that does that. And all you would do is maybe eliminate some people that will be there at night. Occupy is going to continue to be there. So if the idea is to get rid of Occupy so other people can be there, I think that's a wrong idea. I think we should not be trying to censor who can be there, who can be where. We may have some controversial ideas. That's not what's important. What's important is that we have a place to speak. And I think what we should be focusing on is creating a safe place where people can meet and be, and where we can form understanding. I thought that was a very important thing about Occupy, is where people from all sorts of ways of life. I actually grew up very conservative, believe it or not, and I've talked to people here. I've learned new ways of being in this world. I've learned a lot of things that I never would have thought I've ever seen. I never would have thought I would have seen a police officer come up to me, ask me if I or anyone I knew was on drugs, or if they wanted to participate in a program where they could get some McDonald's and cigarettes and maybe a little money, I never thought I would have seen that in my lifetime. And I think it's important that we have these spaces where we can speak up against this. And to eliminate this speech is a crime. And you will not get rid of us. We will be here. You might try to get rid of us at night, but we'll be there during the day still. So it will just decrease sometime when some people can be there. I think it will have no effect on the general use of public space. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Russ Nelson. Welcome.
Chair, thank you. Russ Nelson, 81 South 9th Street. I'm here representing also the Downtown Council. I'm on the exec committee. My firm is Nelson, Dietz & Hoy. I'm in favor of the resolution before you. And again, echoing some of the earlier comments you've heard from Sam and Kevin, I represent a lot of tenants who occupy space in buildings from the landlords. And the appearance and the reality of safety is critical in order to both retain and secure new tenancies. And the present condition does not advance that, and I think it is not free speech. It has more to do to safety. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sarah Harris.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Harris, 81 South 9th Street. I run the Minneapolis Downtown Council, and I've been a lifelong resident of Minneapolis. More than half my life has been within 6 blocks of PV Plaza, as a matter of fact. I am asking the group here today to approve this resolution. I am completely in favor of the ordinance. Each year, the Downtown Improvement District deploys services to make downtown cleaner, safer, greener, and better so that it can be a place to attract businesses, jobs for people when they want them, and residents and visitors. And this has an impact, negatively impacted all of the services that we provide in downtown. Specifically, I would like to speak to the issue of safety. I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, but just as you can't yell fire in the middle of a crowd, you shouldn't also be able to do things that create problems and safety hazards for people. Most notably, there have been people that have tripped over items left in the plaza and seriously injured themselves. There have been several assaults that were very serious on occupiers that were in the plaza camping overnight. And the presence of unattended articles has made it very difficult to manage security in and around the plaza for the properties and the public that are there. I'm a staunch proponent of freedom of speech, but I'm also concerned about safety and livability in downtown, and I want to maintain the standards that make it safe for everybody. Allowing people to speak is important, but putting them or others in harm's way as a result is an unnecessary consequence. Please vote for freedom of speech and for public safety. Please vote for this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Terry Burke. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Terry Burke, 2908 Monterey Avenue in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. I'm a member of Women Against Military Madness. We're a 30-year women's peace organization in the Twin Cities. We've had a WHAM Occupy committee since the beginning. We see this as a critical part of the effort by young people, middle-aged people, and older people around our country to address the very real and serious issues facing us right now. When our legislators on the Capitol are focusing on how to give hundreds of millions of dollars to make a billionaire wealthier, we're in the streets, in the plazas, talking with people from all walks of life about their problems. I've been on the plaza talking with people from the suburbs, from Wisconsin, who are sharing the same problems. If Target and some of the other corporations are concerned about the safety, I wish they would talk to the police about their program of putting people with problems into PV Plaza. I think that the police should be addressed in regards to safety. The Occupy people are the safest, most nonviolent, concerned citizen that I've met. These are people who are dedicating all of their time to solving the problems we face. Instead of focusing on PV Plaza being a place for corporate events, I think it's really critical at this time in our society that we all engage in looking at how do we solve some of these problems. And to have PV Plaza be a place where citizens in a democracy are talking with each other and learning from each other and figuring out ways to address these problems, I think is a lot more important than a corporate event. Thank you.
I have 3 more signed up on this sign-up sheet, and there may be some more that have also signed up. Want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak who wants to. The next person on the sign-up sheet is Shane, might be Zam. Welcome. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Shane Zahn. I'm the Director of Safe Zone Operations. Every morning I wake up and I tell myself I have the best job in the world. Why is that? I get to collaborate with businesses, residents, nonprofits to make sure downtown is safe and vibrant. I know I have a lot of gray hair, but this year I think it's a different shade because of downtown safety. I look at 2 things, fear and frustration. Right now the tolerance level of fear of safety is high. The frustration piece is high. And when I look at safety, I look at 2 things, the perception and the reality. Perception. Does it feel safe? Am I safe? No matter what the numbers are telling me. So let's talk about perception, especially PV Plaza. This is what it looks like right now. These are the conditions of PV Plaza, and I've submitted these to your clerk. But this is the conditions we're seeing when we go to the PV Plaza.
You can also put them on the overhead there if you'd like.
So I asked myself, again, how about the reality? Let's look at the reality that we've had. So when 1101 Nicollet Mall, in 2010, how many incidents did we have on that plaza? 8. 2011, how many incidents on that plaza? 4. This year, 2012, we've had 39 incidents. For example, 418, the occupier suffers symptoms of hypothermia, taken to HCMC. 424, calls reported fights among occupiers. 424, several people fighting. More disturbingly, just recently, on 427, a CSC rape between occupiers on the plaza. This is disturbing. Last night, I'm sitting home watching a tornado warning go through. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? They're out on the plaza. Again, more issues out there. Again, perception and reality. We're not saying they don't have the right to be there. We're saying to pass this resolution because this camping is not feeling safe, and the reality is not safe there. And we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Next speaker is Dominic Boza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my name is Dengani Zaba, and I'm with Occupy Minneapolis.
I think there might be another person with a similar name, Dominic Bosa. Sorry about that. I'll get to mispronounce your name in a few minutes.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Dominic Boza. I live at 4215 Portland Avenue, South Minneapolis. I've submitted this testimony. I'm just going to get to the highlights here. I got 25 years experience in security and safety, 15 in social services, 10 working directly with the homeless, advocating and certainly protesting for them. My observations are clearly that there are homeless and street people, Minnesota occupiers, and general population using PV Plaza. From my observations, I would suspect mental illness in at least one of the homeless men around the plaza, along with several others who most likely probably suffer from chemical dependency, and given the opportunity, would consume alcohol in the area. Judging from the 17 calls, 911 calls from 418 to 427, alcohol is an increased problem in the area. Allowing or contributing to the use of alcohol by any parties in this area enables the chemically dependent to feel their addiction. It may even attract addicts who wouldn't necessarily be there in that area already. There is a certain duty to protect by the city. The city has posted signs not allowing skateboarding, which obviously targets a specific population, nor entry into the water pool in the plaza. There are signs to keep off certain concrete areas, yet there are overhangs that would provide a dry sleeping area that are easily accessible. Unfortunately, if an intoxicant were to seek this shelter and pass out, it would not be out of the question for them to roll down one step into about 6 to 8 inches of water where they could easily or possibly drown if unable to come to their senses immediately. The steps in the plaza are all concrete, again allowing for potential injury for an unstable intoxicant. We've already had 2 cases of that in the last several days. Getting to my final points, I've spoken to a bartender at Britt's Pub. He said he was familiar with the homeless in the area and did not see them as a problem or a bother. He did not feel the Occupy movement encroached upon the business either. He stated that he did work nights. We also noticed that there were, with the Occupy movement, is that there were several, where the area that they were presented a tripping hazard, especially for intoxicants. To conclude, for those who want to help, they would have access to the Salvation Army Harbor Light, to case management, assistance with moving into their homes, regular meals, roof over the head, help with chemical dependency, mental illness, and access to appropriate medications and medical attention when necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is, I believe it's Madeline. Thank you. I'll let you pronounce your last name and give us your address if you...
My name is Madeline Rockney Semko. I live at 3104 11th Avenue South. I live near Powderhorn Park. I'm 16. I'm a sophomore in high school. And I come to you today appalled. And the reason is I thought that in this country the police were here to protect and serve. From what I've seen from the current report compiled by various people of the Occupy movement, which I am proud to be a part of, that is not the case. What you see in the report is of policemen doing the exact same thing that they have always done during these Occupy movements and the exact opposite of what they were told to do when they signed up for the force. You see them giving people intoxicants and drugs. And you tell us, and we are constantly told by many people that they're here to protect and serve us when they've been doing the exact opposite of what they are supposed to do. Personally, I'm appalled. I've been told time and time again that, as I've said before, police are here to protect us. If they're here to protect us, then why, over the course of a good, century and a half or so, why have we seen often in history that that is not the case? My other concern is that, honestly, the only people I see that care about what is happening to this country in terms of foreclosure and homelessness and the condition between class warfare are the people on the Occupy side. Not to, portray any, opposite view of the people who are in power of the corporations. I respect the people on both sides. I understand that the people who are the CEOs and the vice presidents of corporations, I understand that they are simply trying to do their job. That is what we all wish to do when we have a job. We want to do that job and feel happy that we are getting something in return. However, I don't think it is in the best interest of the CEOs and corporate controls in this country to see that people are stepping up and actually doing something about it. I honestly don't think it's in the best interest of anyone who has any scrap of power in this country to see what the Occupy movement is doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I believe it's Dinjani Zabu.
Once again, my name is Dingane Zaba, and I am homeless. I'm also part of the Occupy movement. Real quickly, just to address some of the concerns about safety that people have addressed today. I've been occupying PV on and off since April 7th, and I'm not going to lie to you, I have seen many different issues and problems with PV. I've seen public intoxication, I've seen fights, I've seen people getting taken to the ambulance because they got hypothermia, wet blankets, you name it. It's all there. What appalls me the most, though, is that instead of actually giving us help, it seems like the police more and more are only interested in keeping surveillance on us and harassing us in any form possible. As you heard Dan Fight talk about earlier, we had incidences in which police were coming up to occupiers and homeless people in general and asking them to come back into their cars and get high. I had one person tell me, yeah, the sheriff car over there across the street, you should go in there and get high. I'm like, seriously, like this is what our tax dollars are going to. Needless to say, these are serious and legitimate concerns. However, I would like to inform people that homelessness is not a new thing, and the issues that come with it are not new either. If you've ever spent time in shelters, you would know that sexual assault, you would know that drug use, you would know that violence is not an uncommon thing in those areas. And needless to say, PV tends to attract a lot of homeless people. It's been that way for years. I feel as though there's somewhat of a campaign to slander us and say that we're causing these problems. And I just don't think that that's true. Even if you pass this resolution, at the very best, you're probably going to end up moving it to another area of town where we don't have to pay attention to it as much. Bottom line is, Nicollet Mall makes millions, if not billions of dollars each year. And I feel like the only reason that we're really talking about this is because of that simple fact. So the bottom line is, this is about free speech. The people of Minneapolis have a right to dictate how their tax dollars are going to be spent and where and when they can assemble on public property. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Doug Sembla. Welcome.
Doug Sembla, 1870 26th Street East. I'd like to speak about a few things. One, we all know the numbers for crimes in the city as well as cities nationwide. I don't think we can pretend that there aren't sexual assaults, intoxication issues going on everywhere. All of your wards, these things are happening. We have a situation here where we have documented evidence of police encouraging people to be intoxicated or doing this program, whatever you want to look at it as. We have a situation here where people on the plaza have reported being offered by police officers, hey, either you can go to detox or you can go to Occupy. Either you can go to jail or you can go to Occupy. These things are documented. All in all, you look at what's happened on the plaza, and that's not to belittle any incident that has happened. We're doing pretty well. We don't have a fancy police force. We don't have cars. We don't have big weapons. We don't have helicopters. We don't have any of the fun toys. And yet we've had almost no crime, comparatively. I think you should take that seriously, that a bunch of kids getting together and trying to create a movement can do better in some ways than the Minneapolis police force. Also, I want to point out that many of our business colleagues in the room have mentioned the idea of appearance, and that's what I think this is about. It's about maintaining some sort of mythological image about the state of our country as well as our city.
Next speaker is Sarah Martin. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Martin, and I live at 622 8th Avenue Southeast. And I think what we're hearing today, or what the resolution is all about, is protection of the 1%. And ironically, they're using safety and safety as an issue. And the safety and crime, the little that there is, actually could be dealt with by the very issues that the Occupy movement, the movement of the 99% is talking about. I mean, this movement is coming out of a desperate kind of situation in our country and around the world, where the disparities are huge and social services are being slashed while we're bombing countries and destroying countries around the world. So it's ironic that the representatives of the 1% are suddenly concerned about safety and crime when it's all around. So last fall you voted and you passed a resolution supporting the Occupy movement, and I imagine you understood those things then, so I encourage you to all vote against this resolution this time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Michael Catch.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Welcome.
As I have spoken before, I want to lay it out simply. We're talking about our United States Constitution here. And at no time did our founding fathers sit around at a tavern table and say, you know, the citizens of the United States should have the right to assemble, but we should only have that right from 10 o'clock from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. After that, they shouldn't be able to assemble. Unfortunately, they never said that, so our Constitution pretty much guarantees us the right to assemble at any time. Having spent time with Vice President Al Gore during his presidential campaign, I hate to say that this is a hearing about inconvenient truths. An inconvenient truth is that this particular ordinance as written is an attack on homelessness. It is a criminalization of homelessness. And having worked with Guy Gamble and a lot of other people for a lot of years on trying to end the criminalization of homelessness, that what we were doing is, unfortunately, going to make it harder on the homeless population. I would respectfully ask that you submit a delete all to this particular ordinance and substitute, in deference of Mr. Grabowski, our business community, our landlords, as I am a downtown resident, a substitute resolution that would basically say no tents or sleeping equipment until after 10 p.m. and it all has to be picked up by 6 p.m. 6 a.m. I'm sorry. That you would leave the plaza open to anybody who wants to use it during the day and into the evening, but at night that homeless and the occupiers could use it for those particular hours. I don't see where that would harm anybody downtown. I don't see where that would be a harm to Briggs Pub. And since it is within the downtown safe zone, that these people would be somewhat safe. And again, I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much for being here. We have 5 people left on the sign-up sheet here. I don't know if there's any more, and there'll be an opportunity if you haven't signed up to speak at the end. That's just to let people know what to expect. Laura Ross is next. Welcome.
I'm Laura Ross. I live at 2020 22nd Avenue South in the Great Seward neighborhood, which is a rich and long tradition of free expression and respect for people's right to assemble. And that is what this is about. I don't think the downtown is owned by Downtown Business Council, by Target, by corporations. I think that, you know, in fact, what goes on in a lot of those buildings is itself economic violence. and that you disregard the numbers of people who are jobless. I'm one of them, and I was a complex litigation paralegal for 16 years. I know exactly what corporations do.
One of the things you could do is make sure to address the chair in the committee here. We don't want to get too much.
And I think that order is probably in the eye of the beholder, and that economic violence is in fact disorder. And sometimes you need to look within before pointing fingers and suggesting that other people are making you feel unsafe. I was down at the plaza the other night when we had officers from Anoka, from Hutchinson, come driving around Peavey to pick up people and offer them drugs. I was there and I talked to these people when they got back. I was astounded, and in fact, there's no reason for them to be doing it around Peavey except to create the perception that the whole problem is around Peavey Plaza, or those that suggest there was no safety problem downtown before the occupiers came down to create freedom of expression. We've had problems with crime in downtown Minneapolis for a long time with nightclubs and things, and no one, for some reason, has suggested banning them from downtown. So, I really hope that everyone will look at this really long and deeply. This is a very, very cherished tradition enshrined in our Constitution that we be able to express ourselves. And in any other time in history, it is important to do it now because we are hurting out here. We have more people destitute than any time in my lifetime. And we have more surveillance programs started. People are feeling so oppressed. And if you start oppressing them more, and if we don't have places to go to speak out, we're going to rise up in some other way. You cannot contain this kind of destitution and pain by shutting off our right to speech. Okay.
Next speaker is Deborah O'Neill. We also have that submission in writing. I know she was still on the list, so it appears she's not here. Okay. Javier Murillo. Welcome. You can identify your name and address for the record.
My name is Javier Murillo. I'm president of the Service Employees Union Local 26. Our office here in downtown in the North Loop. I live on the west side of St. Paul. And I wanted to speak to this resolution. Our members are the janitors, security officers, and also the downtown ambassadors of the Downtown Improvement District. They're the folks who keep Minneapolis clean and safe. In the work of the union also, we do a lot of protesting. In the fall, with the advent of Occupy, we did our best to use this as an opportunity to really change the conversation nationally, which has happened, I think. Occupy has changed the conversation nationally to be about income inequality. And what do we do about that? And we work with a coalition called the Minnesotans for a Fair Economy. This is a broad cross-section of faith groups, of community groups. And what unites us is a shared analysis of the problem. When we look at how our economy tanked and who tanked it, it's not you guys, not the Minneapolis City Council, and not the Minneapolis Police Department, but the big banks that actually did the harm to the economy, that are at the heart of our foreclosure crisis. They don't have their own police forces, but they do have the ability to pit activists and put us and you guys against each other. And I think that's something that we all have different roles to play. I'm not an occupier. I'm with a union, but we have different roles to play in how we fix what's wrong, just as you have a different role to play. My concern about this resolution is about when given how much we use the tactic of protest, when we start developing laws specific to a specific group and a specific kind of protest, that's of concern to me. And I guess just to remind us that we're talking a lot about perception and about discomfort, that very often the purpose of protests is to cause discomfort. That's the point. And that when we get into judging these discomforts, I quite honestly feel very uncomfortable sometimes with the intoxicated people who leave Brits pub. Like I feel uncomfortable and unsafe. But that's my personal perception. But I would urge us to really think about creating any special rules, laws specific to a form of protest or a specific group of protesters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Nikki Lasorello. Welcome.
My name is Nikki Lasorella. I live at 3318 15th Avenue South. I am someone who has practiced nonviolent civil disobedience for many years. I've been fortunate to be able to do that. I've been arrested. I've been sprayed with a fire hose in 40 below zero weather. I've sat in with and supported many people. And I've protested in our downtown area. As a matter of fact, I was arrested at the Normandy Hotel during the Final Four, where if people knew that there was a strike going on there, they would not have stayed at that hotel. We were told that by the visitors from all over the country. So to say that the occupiers are a hindrance to our downtown area, in my estimation, is not fair or true. In addition, I'd like to say that I'm forgetting what I'd like to say, but in all those years of my own participation in nonviolent civil disobedience and protests, there has never, in my understanding, been a resolution to limit our practice of free speech. And the only thing I can conclude is that this is directed at the occupiers, and because they are right on in what they are challenging. So I urge you all to vote against this resolution.
Thank you very much. And just to let you know, as I was telling you that I think we had 5 more, I've got another sheet now with 8 additional names. So try to be succinct, and feel free to just highlight new points that you want to make. The next speaker is Chuck Turchik. Welcome.
Hi, Mr. Chair, committee members. Chuck Turchik, 2112 Portland Avenue, South Minneapolis. I'm terrible with words, so I thought I'd begin by giving you your own words. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minneapolis that in order to create a shared dialogue through which to address the problems and generate solutions for 99% of Americans, the city stands in support of peaceful calls for serious reforms to the income tax, financial, and electoral systems, and of education efforts in furtherance of those goals. That was the resolution you passed on October 21st, 2011. All 4 of you voted for that. It was a vote of 9-2. The 2 members who aren't here, who are on this committee, coincidentally were the 2 members who weren't at that October 21st meeting, so they did not vote against it either. I appreciate the concerns of Council President Johnson that these plazas should be open and available to all citizens to use. But if this resolution is targeted at the Occupy folks, and I'm not a member of Occupy, although I share their goals, if it's targeted at the Occupy folks, I think it might be inconsistent with your resolution of October 21st, 2011, especially the portion that says support the education efforts in furtherance of these goals. I appreciate the people who came and spoke in favor of the resolution today, although some of the issues that they raised, I think, for example, the safety issues, probably already are covered by existing laws and ordinances. Maybe the only one that wasn't covered was tripping over something, some unintended belongings. This is a new point, but I would second the speaker that preceded me who said that the purpose of protest is to cause discomfort. Free speech sometimes causes people not to be comfortable. That doesn't mean we should do away with free speech. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Peter Rickmeyer.
Peter Rickmer, 2118 25th Avenue North, Minneapolis, 55411. With all due respect to this committee council, in politics, perception is reality, and it may not have anything to do with the truth. If you look back to since January of 2011, you look at the number of murders, shootings, people getting knifed, and fights in downtown Minneapolis. The majority of it has nothing to do with Occupy Minnesota. Just over the last weekend, they had to shut down light rail and call in over 100 police officers to stop fights. I believe if you really want to attack the dangers of downtown Minneapolis, that to stop people from carrying guns, stop the riots, and stop the killings in downtown Minneapolis may be the highest priority that this committee should do. With all due respect to Target and the business community, I believe that they should not have the right to say, you're in a suit and a tie, you're okay to be there. You're in a t-shirt and a ragged jeans, ooh, we don't want you there because of the perception. I think that's wrong. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Liz D.
Hi there,
Welcome.
my name's Liz. I am with Occupy.
Can you give us your address for the record?
Oh, I live in Minneapolis. I don't want to share my address right now because I don't feel safe. If we want to talk about safety, let's talk about safety. Let's talk about me chalking downtown and having people follow me around from block to block to block, erasing my chalk as I go. Let's talk about how we're treated, how we should be fairly treated with one another. How is it okay for the police to treat us one way and get away with it? And if we're nothing but nice and polite, for example, this officer sitting on the front row here today, she sat in a chair back here and I said, oh, that seat's taken. And she's like, well, who's sitting there? What? Where is, like, can't you be polite and say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, someone's sitting there? Like, what? Is it because of the way I look? Is that why you think you can speak to me like that? Because you can't.
Please direct your comments to me.
Anyway, I'm very upset about a lot of different things, but what I want to say is fair treatment and safety. We already have those covered in Occupy. We take care of them. We take care of our people. We care for them. I haven't seen that from any institution or authority figures in Minneapolis since I've been here for the past 7 months, sleeping on a plaza. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. The next speaker is Deb Konechny. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Deb Konechny, and I am a member for a long time of the Welfare Rights Committee, which has, we have committee members all over Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, Northeast Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. We are everywhere. And I am a member of the Occupy movement. And I think it's really important to remember that the Occupy movement is a very broad movement. Whether many people in this room believe it or not, we are everywhere. We are in your communities. We are your constituents. We come to Target and spend money. We might sit in your restaurants. We might rent your apartments. Occupy movement is a broad movement. It's the 99%, and you cannot ignore us by trying to pass restrictive resolutions. There is change going on, and it cannot be denied. The 1% and those who represent them are very frightened about Occupy. Why? Because we are taking the mask off of a system that is not only allowing but assisting a tiny percentage to maintain massive wealth at the expense of the rest of us who are trying just to keep our heads above water. That's what's going on. That's why we have people from the corporations here who really, represent the upper percentage in this system. They're here to say, we don't want Occupy here. Occupy is revealing the truth of a broken down system. And every time they see us out there, we're a reminder of that. And they want to eliminate that reminder. They want to eliminate the vision that we give of a possible new future where there is not 1% controlling the vast wealth and the rest of us just scrambling to get the crumbs. So that's why they don't want us there. Just like the same people, the business, the corporations, they don't want homeless people, because that as well exposes that we have a broken system where some can have 3 houses and others don't even have a roof over their heads. This resolution is wrong from its core, so wrong, and I urge you to vote against it.
Next speaker is Mary Ann Spevik.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mary Ann Spivak. I live in some of the suburbs, but most of my time during the day is spent in Minneapolis. I go to school here and I work here. My grandfather was a police officer for many years in Chicago. He would be ashamed at all the things that police are doing here. It's obnoxious and wrong. We are the public. We are the public 24/7, all hours of the day. We should be able to gather wherever we want, 24 hours a day. Why should we stop being the public when we can gather? I'm an artist, and I'm very lucky that I have not been homeless yet. But I know that I have a safe place to go meet with the Occupy people. But if that place is taken away at 2 in the morning when I'm kicked out of my apartment because I can't pay rent, because I don't have a job, I don't have anywhere to go. Why? The man who represented Target said something about having a heart. If you have a heart, use it. Don't kick out people who don't have a place to go. This is a public space. It is meant for the public. We should be able to use it. 99% of the public, we should be able to use it. Everyone should be able to use it. This is wrong. Please vote against this resolution.
Next speaker is Bedabun. I can't remember, I can't read the rest of the names there, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
I'm Badal Benagisis Chelsa. I'm formerly of 2909 West 76th Street, Richfield, but I now am with Occupy PV. I'm there 24/7, so I could be considered homeless. Long-time supporter of Target, Minnesota company. I'd never shop at Walmart. One of the primary things here, though, is we also stand with the Preserve PV Plaza, to the historical site, and we are there trying to raise issues to keep it from being demolished and changed into this new structure, which wasn't made by this architect Freebird. It doesn't have the ambience. I'm a full-time biotechnology student at MTCT, so in my time I support this. So we need to be at PV Plaza to raise awareness that this place is in danger of being demolished, and to do outreach to people on the street about what the Occupy movement's about. But I mean, I think we should vote against this ordinance, not only for the freedom of speech, but because of the relevance of the location itself.
Thank you. Next speaker is T. Smith.
My name is Tony Smith, and first and foremost, I am a person, constituent, and
We're having trouble hearing you. If you could move a little closer to the microphones, we would appreciate that.
I am here to let you guys know that Minnesota raised me. I've been on the street since I was 12 years old. So I guess thank you, but don't forget about us. and I will occupy the plaza. I so was ready for everything I wanted to say, but just got arranged. Just wow. Thank you guys. And
Thank you.
I plan to occupy the plaza until.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sam.
Hi there. I want to speak for more than 2.5 minutes, obviously, but I'll try and be quick. So I just want to explain how public space is supposed to work in this country, since our friends over here in big business clearly don't understand. When I was in civics class back in probably middle and elementary and high school, I learned that taxpayers pay money to the government to maintain public space for their use. We've never restricted anybody on if they wanted to have any sort of demonstration on anywhere we've been since October 7th. We've had Tea Party people there. We've had people in suits come and yell at us to get jobs all the time, to which we don't have a reply because many of us have jobs. And so, let's see here. The corporate interests also keep preempting their testimony with their love and adoration for free speech. I've never seen anybody come down there from that party. Also, there's a lot to cover. And more specifically, highlighting what's been happening, a few people have brought up the whole issue of the deliberate drugging of my friends and comrades that have been on the plaza, and generally sober people. So it sounds to me like the police engineering a social problem that happens to benefit corporate sponsors' agenda. From what I also learned in civics class early on was that, a quote from Mussolini, is that the collusion of corporate interest and state power is called fascism. And that's coming from the guy who invented fascism. So it just it warms my heart to know that we have another agenda item to combat a fascist interest going on in this city specifically. So to those in support of this resolution, just make sure you're on the right side of history. Corporations have repeatedly shown that they are the party least in favor of free speech, and they're the biggest hindrance to the safety, well-being, and prosperity of this country and the world. So nice job trying to hide behind idealistic words of freedom, but your agenda is money and ours is freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you do have more thoughts and more details you'd like to add or anything written down, you can also submit written comments, and they're welcome, and they will be distributed to the council. The second to the last speaker on the sign-up sheet is Scott Hargarten.
Most people don't. I'd like to thank the City Council for their patience and timely opportunity to speak today. I suppose the kind of main theme of the speech I'd like to make here, the brief speech, is one of balance. I appreciate the pressures and the needs of running a city, of wanting to have a safe city, of wanting to have a welcoming city, a city where everybody feels comfortable. At the same time, though, I'm also just society also has certain duties to its citizens to provide an opportunity for a fair forum to actually express themselves and actually to create new political spaces and possibilities. And it's my feeling that right now our country is in a kind of a moment of crisis, a moment where the collusion between corporate influence and electoral politics has gotten to the point where it's actually impossible for the needs and concerns of the average citizen to be fairly represented by a democracy. I think most occupiers would agree with me in saying that, and I think most citizens share that suspicion and see that concern. And so, while I am deeply sympathetic to the needs of, for example, police officers to enforce the law, to create a kind of a comfortable and clean environment, at the same time, as a society and as city council members, we have a duty to actually ensure that we have an opportunity for citizens to engage in an open forum that allows them to create a fair and just and representative democracy. And I feel that without these exceptional means that Occupy is asking for right now, that'll be impossible. And as a point of conviction, I'm willing to go to great ends to actually pursue that goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. The last person to sign up is Forrest Oliver.
Hey, my name is Forrest. I'm here with Occupy. I'm not gonna tell you my address, but I live near Powderhorn Park. I'm here to speak about, because everybody's been talking about it, the police and the sheriff. I'm one of the persons who got taken away. They gave me a full bag of weed, and they gave me a pipe to smoke it out of, and they just took us out to, I forgot the name of the airfield, but it's somewhere in Richfield, out near this bus line, 66 and Cedar, and they let us smoke it on those sand hills where the dirt pits were, and I've done it 3 times with them, over 3 times with them, throughout this week and last week, and basically I asked them like why they're doing this, and they say it's because we're trying to test people to see if we can catch people under the influence, you know, for signs, dilated pupils, all that, and smell. They gave me a urine test, but when I asked them like, is this going to be on record or anything? No, they said nothing about that, and they gave me a fake name and everything, so I don't know what's up with that. And also, the second time I went, I asked some friends to come along, and the second time, there was actually like media and press, I think it was Sam, the shorter Sam, was there filming it, and Ben was there, and Dan was there. He got really angry when they took me away from the Occupy movement, and they were kind of getting into an argument, conversation with them, because he wanted to know why the police were doing this and why this was going on. And I thank you for that, man, standing up for me, and all the people for Occupy about the police. And I'm one of the only ones, but I have a lot more friends who have done this, who can speak even more about this. So, what's going on?
Thank you very much. Is there anybody who didn't get an opportunity to speak who would like to? All right, we'll take the last 2 speakers then. State your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Robert Lightning. I was one of the protesters arrested last October, and my uncle Bill Blake was a Minneapolis police officer.
Would you share your address with us just for the record?
It's 3543 22nd Avenue South.
Thank you.
And my uncle Bill Blake would be horrified with the way I was treated when I was arrested. And we were practicing our First Amendment rights. And the prosecutor is not budging. And we go to court on June 4th. I'm also a first lieutenant with the American Indian Movement, and we do AIM patrol on Franklin Avenue. So I've been involved in things like Occupy before, and in charge of security and the safety of the community that has come out of this. And it's our job to police our own people. We don't need outside interference. I think what Target and Cargill are doing are wrong, and I think what the Minneapolis police are doing are wrong, and I'm just here to state that. Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
My name is Gonzo Phoenix. I was born and raised in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, Minnesota. That's all I would like to share about my information, but I'm very proud to call Minneapolis my home. I would like to just touch briefly on public safety and public space. I've worked as a security guard. I've worked in the service industry and in the security industry downtown Minneapolis. And in my time doing that, I've seen so much more prevalent crime, violent actions happen due to alcohol, due to bars. I've lived in Minneapolis off and on for my entire life. I've traveled through Minneapolis in the past when I've resided in other cities, but I say that to point on the fact that PV Plaza has always been a place where homeless people have always come and gathered. It's always been a place where, you know, certain untasteful things may have happened or may not. But I think a lot of the safety and security issues you're seeing at PV Plaza have nothing at all to do with Occupy Minnesota or Occupy or any of us. It's unfortunately there's unsavory people that are going to bring those sorts of activities to any. Doesn't matter if it's PV Plaza. It doesn't matter what part of Minneapolis it is. They're gonna bring it there. We try to keep the peace amongst each other. We have our own sanitation, safety, security committees, of which we are working on improving. And I just want to talk quickly about public space, squares, parks, bike paths, plazas. Those places have always been intended for public use, for and by the people to come and gather and speak what their truth is and speak their mind and interact with each other to see their communities function in the way that they want to see them function. There are band shells, there are places to use for public performances and block parties and things like that. There are other spaces. You don't need to use our parks and the places that we're using as a public forum. I just urge you guys to vote against this resolution and keep public space public. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is the final speaker then for the afternoon. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Amanda Tomahawk Riley, 117 Cedar Lake Road North in Minneapolis. I've been a resident of Minneapolis for the last 6 years, as well as New Orleans. I kind of am a dual resident girl, go back and forth, travel a lot. I was occupying New Orleans for 2.5 months in front of City Hall, and being the city of New Orleans, we had a lot of violence, intoxication, immense homeless problems, basically resulting from Katrina. And actually the park that we were occupying had been a homeless camp for 9 years prior to us creating an occupation there. The main thing that I learned is that there are other ways of dealing with these issues of violence, rape, intoxication, homelessness. There are other ways of dealing with these problems, which I've noticed that the government and big business obviously doesn't have a lot of attention on it. They don't always want to look at that. They kind of want to look away and brush us under the rug, so to speak. The resolution is not just about PV Plaza, am I correct? It's also all public places, all public plazas owned by the city of Minneapolis. So this is not only about the protesters or the Occupy movement. This is about public space, which many of the public could be potential customers to the businesses along Nicollet Mall and downtown. I was been a server in downtown on Nicollet Mall, Brits Pub, and the local for over 10 years. I've been a server, and I understand that we have to protect our workers and workers' rights, but we're also protecting our public spaces, and it's not just about protesters. It's a lot bigger than that. The main point that I wanted to make was the use of public spaces. The goals that we have as a community are things like teach-ins, education for children, for school children, people all through in all walks of life, as well as performances, opportunities for people to actually get plugged in and get involved, and I think that's what our city needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I am going to close the public hearing then, and will give us an opportunity as a committee to discuss this if we want to. I'm also wondering if maybe Inspector Arneson could just tell us a little bit about what people should do if there are concerns and complaints about police behavior. I think we heard a lot of and some pretty serious allegations. It sounded like not all or necessarily are Minneapolis Police Department officers, but I actually think there might be information people have that the inspector might want or we might want to get so we can follow up. So maybe you could just tell us how people could follow up if they have concerns about police behavior and on some of the stories that we heard today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Arneson, I'm the precinct commander for downtown, and I would encourage people that they should call or come into internal affairs and make a complaint. They can also come into the precinct or call me directly, and I am going to follow up on the allegations that were made here today. But I will need some help from folks so I can have that information.
Do you happen to know anything about this program we heard about? This is DRE? Is this a program that you've heard of, and are you aware that it's being that it's happening?
The program that I know is not how it's described. So again, I already have the person who's in charge of it here from Minneapolis, and I will be having a discussion and following up on that.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
At this point in the afternoon, it's the committee members who get to ask the questions. And I think there is another question, perhaps, Inspector, from Councilmember Tuthill. Is this a question for?
It is a question for Inspector Arneson. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Inspector. If the folks that are here today want to get a hold of you to kind of help you with looking into some of the allegations that were made this afternoon, what is the best way for them to reach you?
They can actually go on the police department website. My direct phone number and address and email is on there, or they can call me directly at 612-673-5504. That's my direct office line. Be glad to talk to them.
Thank you, Inspector.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as a point of information for folks who have allegations of police misconduct who, for whatever reasons, do not want to approach the police department directly, you can also contact the Civil Rights Department in the city of Minneapolis. While the CRA program is in flux, given state law changes, there may still be opportunity there to talk to somebody about how to proceed. And you can dial 311 and ask for the Civil Rights Department.
Thank you very much. People shouldn't hesitate at all to contact their council members as well with information, and that sometimes the council offices can provide a buffer then and gather some information, and especially even things like officer names, badge numbers, those things, and then share them with the inspector. If I know that filing complaints about the police can be a delicate matter, and some people have concerns about that, and I can appreciate that. So that is an alternative. Now we're here to see if anybody has any comments or wants to discuss the action so far. We already heard, if you heard earlier, and we're here earlier, I mentioned that the chair of the committee and the author of the resolution asked that we hold this over so that they have an opportunity to engage in the debate and any amendments that might be considered at the next meeting, which would be in 2 weeks of this committee. But Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a question for you on that is, was the request specifically to hold it over in committee, or can we forward it without recommendation to the council? Because that also would provide an opportunity to participate in the debate, but it would be a full debate with the council.
The request was to hold it in committee to have the discussion here. I'm willing to listen to motions and the will of the group here. I may have some potential amendments or things I'd also like to consider. It maybe depends on the level of support for the resolution, though. And I can just share those right here, whether it's not my intention to try to amend the resolution now, but whether it was at the council or not, I have concerns about the list of the plazas on there. There's the Cedar Riverside Plaza that's mentioned, which is in Ward 2, but as you recall from last committee meeting, there were a couple different locations. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I'm happy to lay it over at committee as a courtesy to the chair, and I'm happy to make multiple sets of comments about the resolution as well. So, with your leave, I'd like to make a few comments now.
Yes, excellent.
And I would like to thank Mr. Turchik for reading those lovely words. That was a very well-crafted resolution, if I do say so myself. This resolution, while born of people's discomfort with Occupy being at PV, in the end is not actually about Occupy. It is about our ordinances. It's about, these are going to last long beyond the time that Occupy is there. If it doesn't, if Occupy is there forever, that would be interesting. But it's a question of our ordinance. I think it's a little peculiar to change our ordinances based on one situation, but sometimes we do that. And there have been problems described on both sides of the issues, some challenges described about what's happening out there. Some of them are genuine. The thing that I would note is that the police have responded to them. That we were given a list of conditions at PV Plaza, but what I'm seeing is the list of things that the police department has responded to. And a lot of them don't strike me as that altogether that much different than the situation we face at bar close, or some of the challenges we face with homelessness. And what I really note from that is that we already have ordinances in place to handle those situations that have been well used here to handle those situations of illegality. We can handle them. There were some, there are some allegations raised today, or many of the situations raised today that aren't the subject of this ordinance change. Assault is something we already handle. Public drunkenness is something that we already handle. And it's not the subject of this ordinance. But when you turn to the substance of what is actually in this ordinance, most of what's in this resolution is actually redundant. We already have sections in place that handle most of these issues. So for the camping and sleeping issues, we have section 244.60 that would say tents or other temporary housing for the purpose of living are already banned. For the toilets and the cooking area, section 440.10 applies regarding picnics and is flexible for this situation. And portable toilets require a permit. We already have that in place. For the issue about property being there, we already have in Chapter 401, we can handle abandoned property. Granted, this would take that a step further, but we have something in place that would do this. So really what's at issue here, and the piece of this resolution that is most at debate here, is whether or not to shut down our plazas between midnight and 6 a.m. I mean, that's really the new piece in this resolution, the thing that isn't currently addressed. And again, this ordinance will outlive Occupy Minnesota. No offense to Occupy Minnesota, but this ordinance is intended to outlive Occupy Minnesota. I hope we prevail on every issue. But and so I, as a policymaker, have to make a decision about using our ordinance to address this one situation and the impact it could have on any other situation we face now or in the future. And two things leap to mind. Most notably is the impact on the criminalization of homelessness. That this applies to all our plazas, that I applaud the work our police department has been doing in the partnership to end homelessness and the new tools we have in place to handle those situations that aren't about criminalizing homelessness. But why I don't want to add something to our ordinances that would create a temptation for us to continue to do so or to do so again. And in addition, I, as a policymaker, I have to balance this against the potential First Amendment impacts. I am not an attorney. I'm certainly not a constitutional law scholar. And just as a citizen and as someone who's been elected, I have a lot of questions about what are the implications of this for the First Amendment, of restricting this, especially under these circumstances. Restricting access to our plazas under these circumstances in particular. So I'm not a supporter of this resolution. Most of the resolution, most of the situations this resolution is designed to address, we already address here at the city, and the one that isn't has significant implications for other policy issues we care about.
Councilmember Tuthill.
I think my colleague, Councilmember Hodges, has brought up some very valid points, but here's another one that I struggle with. Our parks close at 10 o'clock, period. So I'm having trouble struggling with, we close our parks at 10 o'clock. You're not to be in the parks in the city of Minneapolis after 10 o'clock. You can't camp in the parks in the city of Minneapolis after 10 o'clock. That's not new. It's a struggle for me because I think putting an hour time of midnight to 6 is even more generous than what we have in the park system already. And if I had my choice of sleeping at PV Plaza or the park, hands down, I'm going for a park. So this is a real interesting and a really tough situation. I agree with Councilmember Hodges. Freedom of speech is extremely important. However, we're not saying I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here on both sides of the issue. If we're saying that the plazas are not to be occupied between 10 o'clock or midnight or whatever comes out of all of this, or at all, that doesn't mean people can't talk. That doesn't mean people can't get together and talk. There's coffee houses and other places that are open that are late. I understand not wanting to spend money. I get that piece. I get that piece. But we already have some restrictions on our parks for a reason. And if we did a similar restriction on our plazas, it would be the same kind of continuity. This is an extremely tough issue for us. I do not want homeless people to be arrested either. I agree. Most of us at this dais this afternoon sat at a luncheon raising money for St. Stephen's for their outreach program downtown to get people out of homelessness, to get them into safe, secure housing. And I might add that that luncheon was underwritten by Target. No one paid for us to go to lunch today. Every dime that we wrote our checks for went directly to St. Stephen's, and for that, I'm very thankful as we watch a number of our business partners step up, pick up that kind of luncheon for us to run and have lunch for 59 minutes, write a check, and every dime that we give goes to the organization whose mission we are supporting. We can work hand in hand between our business community and our residential community. Anybody that's sitting here that's employed, somebody owns that business that you work for. Somebody is the business person that is helping employ you. Please be very, very careful when you start putting everybody in a pigeonhole of an irresponsible business owner that we as taxpayers ended up bailing out. Not every business is that irresponsible. So I think we've got to look at some solutions. I think we've got to figure out a way that we can get the issue of our freedom of speech, our right to assemble, to work that will work for the business community and also for the residents. And I agree with Councilmember Hodges. This is something that will be around for a long, long time, and I think we have to be extremely careful at how we proceed and what we do. And I also want to thank all of you for coming down this afternoon on such a gorgeous day. This is not where I'd want to be either.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hofstede.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everyone, for coming down and having a rich discussion. Certainly, there are complex issues that were discussed today. What is not being discussed, what is not on the table, is the Constitution and the constitutional rights, which all of us enjoy. So I want to make that clear, that that's not what any discussion here today is about. It's not about whether or not you have the rights. You do have the rights that's guaranteed under the Constitution. That's not what we're having a discussion about. But this discussion, I think, is important in terms of there are all kinds of points of view which need to be raised, and consideration of a variety of points of view in order for us to live and cohabitate together. Some serious discussions have taken place, and with a process in place that Inspector Anderson has brought forward, and some other avenues should there be some concerns regarding individuals' rights. So I hope people fully engage in that, but I do want to make this clear. This is not a discussion about freedom of speech or right to assemble. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hofstede. I disagree a little bit, because I think this is a discussion about the time, place, and manner restrictions that government has been granted the authority and can have over speech to help regulate it somehow. And I think we've been there before with other issues here in the city, and when the Republican National Convention was coming, what is speech, what isn't speech. I know that's going on in other cities and states. Over the Occupy movement as well. So it definitely rubs up against that. I think this is a difficult issue. I happen to oppose the resolution. I don't think it's the right kind of solution. The plazas are already regulated by Public Works and the Director of Public Works, and the Director of Public Works has an opportunity to grant permits in the uses and not. And even in the ordinance itself, it cites about removal of property, and then cites another part of our code that already regulates that. I even think there might be some differences about when certain parks close and when they don't. If we look up the ordinances about parks, it looks more like it's midnight. But I do know that a lot of parks, it's posted 10 p.m. and it's prohibited. So I'd actually welcome the opportunity to analyze that a little further. I also happen to know that one of the plazas listed here has a sidewalk cafe for a restaurant that's open past midnight, and they seat people and serve people past midnight. And I don't think that's been a problem for anybody, as well as the plaza at Mayday Books. There haven't been issues there, and I think that it could be overreaching to have some unintended negative consequences and be harming a business in the area. And I also think there are activities that could happen if Orchestra Hall was open and events were going on after midnight that they'd want to have happen there. And I actually seem to recall some all-night music marathon festivals that have gone on in PV Plaza before. And I know this is a resolution and essentially offers a guidance on how to enforce an ordinance. And I have a big question about that, too. I think if we're going to refine the ordinance that refers to our plazas, we may as well amend the ordinance that refers to our plazas. And I think the ordinance right now gives us a lot of flexibility. In fact, fearful that so much flexibility it could even be more restrictive than the resolution is, because it gives a lot of discretion to the Director of Public Works to figure out how they're going to be used. So I would take the position we already have the tools in place, and did have the tools in place, and a good avenue to follow would have been to try to get the stakeholders together. I think it's really important that we have a downtown area and a plaza that serves the businesses, that the downtown council and the downtown improvement district and the building owners figure out a way that it could work. And I tend to be overly idealistic, I'm told, but my sense is that if we could get the stakeholders together and actually have a dialogue and a discussion, we could probably find a lot of workable ways so that it could meet the needs of both sides of this issue, rather than coming down with what we think is a quick solution and a resolution that gets written without a lot of input from. I don't think there was actually a lot of input from either side when this was introduced. I could be wrong, and we could hear differently when Councilmember Johnson is here at our next committee meeting. But I could have seen that if a lot more time was taken with this, it could have been a lot more successful. I think the committee's divided. I think people in Minneapolis are divided about it, and it's not comfortable, and it's not that productive to have such deep-seated division when I actually think we could probably find a more commonality. And hopefully, if this doesn't go forward and is defeated, we can find a way to kind of come out of that with some dialogue and figure out a system that would work better for all these stakeholders. And that's, I guess, all the comments that I necessarily wanted to make today. I think it was good that each one of us had an opportunity to speak a little, and I really appreciate that everybody came down today to speak on this issue. There won't be a public hearing at the next committee, but it will be something that people might want to pay attention to or take advantage of to communicate more with other council members and committee members and make sure that their views are heard by the council and understood. Might even help us find a path for compromises or amendments along the way. I'm not sure. But I will just move to postpone this then one cycle so that we can keep it in committee to honor the request of my colleagues. Is there any discussion on that motion or further comments? Councilmember Tuthill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we put something there on some staff direction just to get a little more information of what the parks are doing and what the communities around Minneapolis are doing, if anything or nothing? I think it would be very helpful just to see what their ordinances are. No, I'm talking about around the, St. Louis Park, Golden Valley, Bloomington, St. Paul. I'm very curious as to what other communities are doing.
I think a staff direction would be appropriate. I'm not sure about the details. I did try to look at a different staff direction, and then I concluded that maybe I'd like to do some of my own research. But would you like to take a stab at a staff direction?
Yeah, the only problem is which staff? Public Works? Police Department? I mean, I'm not.
The city attorney's office would make a lot of sense. The committee here doesn't typically give direction to the city attorney's office. But Mr. Ginder, would you be open to a staff direction, perhaps, to investigate? I think it seems appropriate. The city attorney's office does serve all the committees. Does that seem something you think would be appropriate?
Mr. Chair, we're certainly willing to do that. I'm assuming you're looking for permits for plazas or parks in some of the neighboring communities.
Sort of a best practices. What are they doing? You know.
I may be able to tell you what they are doing. I don't know if it'll be a best practices. But
Oh, all right. Maybe I chose the wrong words. I can handle that.
A survey
I'd
of
be curious,
options.
St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Golden Valley, just the kind of the first ring of suburbs around us in St. Paul, I think would be really helpful. Thank you, Mr. Kinder.
I think sometimes we like to look at comparable cities or counties as well, because we recognize Minneapolis is kind of large. And Councilmember Hodges, were you suggesting that we should look further than the first ring suburbs?
Mr. Chair, it might be useful to know what large cities around the country are doing who have Occupy movements in them.
I think that would be helpful too. Can we make that part of the staff direction? I think people are open to that. Okay, so Councilmember Tuthill then has moved to staff direction that the City Attorney's Office will look at other cities in the area as well as other comparably sized cities throughout the country, especially those that have a significant Occupy movement in them, so that we can get an understanding of the rules and regulations and ordinances they have around their plazas, parks, and public spaces. Does that sound like a pretty good summary? All right. Any discussion on that further? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Then on the motion to postpone this one cycle, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries as well. And seeing no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.